Okay, Rob Brown here with you on this Friday morning. We're still here in Atlanta, home of SEC Media Days. Been a fun and informative week. We've been around a lot of the people that move the needle in college football. I'm here with Jimmy Hodge, and Frank Duffy's been with us all week. He's taken today off to recuperate in the beautiful mountains of North Georgia, where it's always a little cooler. It's always cooler in the mountains, and the water's a little clear. But we'll be with you 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee, which is where we are right now. We're here every Monday through Saturday, again, 8 to 10 a.m. Sidelines.live. If you don't hear us live, always check us out at 680thefan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta, and on Saturdays, Fox 98.3 FM in Central Alabama. We're broadcast there all over Central Alabama, Birmingham, Montgomery, Lake Martin, and everywhere in between. Glad to have a great lineup today. Got some new folks on the show with us today. Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com. Been working for them for close to 9, maybe 10 years, covering the Texas Longhorns. That is the oldest site dedicated solely to covering the Horns, I believe. He'll join us. We'll also be joined by another one, Lonnie Demery from the Kentucky Sports Report, talking about the Cats, his takeaway from Media Days. And again, one of our regulars, we didn't put them together. We separated them. Olin Buchanan, Texags.com, just got back from Media Days to get his takeaway on everything he learned this week. It wasn't just about the school that you follow. It's about everybody that gets up there and speaks. Our sponsors all week long, Miss Rubens Rubs, hey, Black Magic, White Magic, Seafood Magic, and the Creole Magic. They are absolutely as good as it gets. And they've got marinades now, too. Get them at Publix. Get them at Piggly Wiggly. And I'll tell you right now, you can put them on anything. Brisket. The Black Magic's great on tenderloin. Rub it. The Seafood Magic, self-explanatory. It's good on seafood, Tommy boy. But if they don't have them at your grocery store, ask the grocery store manager to start stocking them, and you'll be back there. Or go to the Walmart or Amazon website, and always MissRubens.com. And American Cast Iron Pipe Company and Spiral Weld been supporting us, sponsoring us all week long, making this trip possible, accommodations and everything for SEC Media Days. Thank you so much. All these companies, all of our sponsors, we love them all. Support them. That's what we're here for, to get the word out. And remember, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Jimmy, it's been a wild week, man. Yesterday, running downstairs after the show, you got Brian Harsin from Auburn. Everybody's like, well, he's a lot more relaxed. Then you got Josh Heupel from Tennessee. He's lost weight. And then you got Jimbo Fisher. I thought it was funny. One of the reporters in the main media room asked him, how come you talk so fast? It's just unreal. He goes, hey, I'm a reporter's dream, man. I get y'all in and out of here in a hurry. What's wrong with that? I thought that was a good question, even better answer. But, man, it's been great watching all the different people from all over the country. Tremendous interest, Jimmy. But I think the biggest takeaway I've got about all these coaches and the whole week was we didn't spend the majority of the time talking about NIL and the portal, but there is big news breaking about the portal, and that players can transfer and be eligible immediately, multiple occasions. I mean, honestly, who came up with that idea? The same person that came up with these awful suits I've seen so many people wearing in Atlanta, the skinny suit that's about a foot short of your shoes. I mean, I'm talking, these are people in their 30s and 40s dressing like that. I mean, if I dressed like that at work, I'd be sent home, or in school, I'd be sent home or paddled. And the young kids, the student athletes from all the SEC schools, they were dressed like just good conservative businessmen, like bankers and financial advisors and lawyers. I'm telling you what a wild. Who comes up with this stuff? Jimmy, would you wear a suit like that? I mean, My wife has a suit like, pants like that. They're called clam diggers. When you go out there, I guess it came from going out on the beach digging for clams, but I wouldn't be caught wearing those things like that, and I'd lose my man card. How are you, Jimmy?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Well, we're in an age right now where nothing's out of bounds. And I think people are just at the point that they just want to see how far they can go before somebody says something about it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for Halloween or something like that, but I just couldn't see you or Frank Duffy wearing anything, or even my kids. They're 22, 23-year-old boys. I mean, they wouldn't wear anything like that. I mean, my goodness, man. But it was fun, man. And I tell you, Jimmy, the whole college football world has been focused on Atlanta this week. Let's talk about what you learned that you didn't know, or what you saw or heard that reinforced what you believe.
Well, it just has proven over time that the SEC is the one conference that can pull off in a spectacular fashion a 4-day session of media days. I mean, nobody gets tired of it. I mean, it's just executed so well. I thought all the coaches acquitted themselves in outstanding fashion. They handled the questions very smoothly. It was entertaining, but yet informative. You got opinions from all the coaches on subjects that everybody wants to know about. And again, the national interest in this league is just unbelievable. The heavy hitters in the media that were there. It's just a sensational event now, and it just stands out from everywhere else. And again, I thought it was capped off, and the timing was perfect. And I thought this could happen because you knew they had to make it public pretty soon, and that was Georgia announcing the Kirby Smart contract extension. I was not surprised. Everybody knew it was coming. They just didn't know when. I personally felt all along that it was going to be in that $10 to $12 million a year range, and that's exactly how it turned out. But this is just the beginning. I mean, they've kind of set the tone, and subsequent contract extensions with the heavyweight coaches are just going to get larger and larger.
Well, no surprise, 100 million, 10 years.
Just 112.
112. So everybody's just trying to one up the other one. Let people telling stories. Well, I got one better than that. Well, I got one better than that. Well, that's coaches' salaries today. But when you consider the money that the football and sports programs bring in to a university, Jimmy, you could argue that Kirby Smart, you could argue that Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban are all underpaid.
Kyler Murray's making $230 million to play quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals the next 5 years.
Wow. I mean, that's
$46 million a year.
Yeah.
Try that on for size.
Is that the highest contract ever paid to a quarterback? Tom Brady never got that kind of money from a contract.
He's number 2. I don't know who number 1 is, but the going rate right now for a starting NFL quarterback, and then you're getting an extra game added to the schedule. So it's for 17 starts if you can remain healthy for that many starts. It's averaging now in the $40 to $45 million range for at least the top 10 or the top half of NFL quarterbacks. It's unbelievable.
Well, excuse me, you think that we would learn. Sam Bradford got the $78 million contract when he came out. Is the number 1 pick. The very next year, here comes Cam Newton, arguably had one of the greatest football seasons of a quarterback in college football history. His quarterback contract, the first 4 years, was only $22 million because they changed the way they pay him. You don't get your big money until later. I mean, that is a And Sam Bradford didn't have much of a career. Cam had a hell of a career. I think that the contract for Kyler Murray, it's just insane. It is absolutely, it's insane to think that they would pay somebody that kind of money. I mean, Kyler Murray is my size, and with the helmet, he's about 5'10", 5'11". I mean, he's a hell of a quarterback. He's an athlete. I guess it's just reflective of how much the game has changed. Doug Dean has just jumped in here with us. I know it was kind of late moment. I kept this first part open because I wanted to just get a chance, because we have been just really just immersed all week long. And I had to remember that it's Friday. But Doug, we're talking about the coaching contract of Kirby Smart. It was announced, and then the quarterback contracts that are being paid. But all in all, let's get back to football. The SEC media days. I gotta say this again. The Southeastern Conference office, from Greg Sankey on top, Herb Vincent, Director of Communications. You just Chuck Dunlap. I can't even begin to tell you what they did working with Kimberly Bowden, the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame, and her staff, the great people at the Omni Hotel. Anything that you need, they are jumping through hoops. I met Mike. Mike's been up here, Miguel, about 4 years from Columbia. Man, I'm going to tell you something. If America had more guys like Miguel, Mike, we'd be an even greater country than the greatest country in the world. But the people in Atlanta, man, they do it right, Doug. And I know we're kind of going on and on about these contracts and all, but I don't know if your contract is like Kirby Smart's, but let's talk some football and your takeaways from Brian Harsin yesterday.
Well, thank you and good morning. Yeah, it's just you and Jimmy right now, correct?
Yeah, Duffy's recovering. He's going to be back on with us tomorrow.
Yeah, you got your money's worth out of the Duff this week. That was great.
Yeah,
he's always a lot of energy, a lot of fun. Well, first of all, I want to join both of you, and even as a Birmingham guy, I mean, it's all an SEC family until it's game day, and then we act like the Hatfields and McCoys, and then we're family again, kind of. But I thought Atlanta and everybody involved, Commissioner Sankey, all the people, the production people behind the scenes, did a magnificent job of.
Yeah. Doug, you're breaking up a little bit, but you're talking about the production scene. Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But everybody involved, I thought, made it a very engaging show, and it's also underrated that you only have to wait seconds if you're busy during the day working for it to be available on YouTube, if not streaming live. So it's just come a long way from what we're used to with, remember this Skywriters tour?
Yeah, that was legendary. Buddy Martin was on it.
and to hear the old hands media guys talk about it, they always look forward to a lot of food, every game, I'm sure a bourbon or two. But point being, I thought it was brilliantly executed. And, but a play, if I may use that metaphor, a Broadway play or show like that, live show, is only as good as the actors on the stage. And, it was just a presser. And there are going to be some coaches, we've talked about this, that are great coaches, lousy at the presser. And I don't think their fans will give a rip about that. I could name a few over the years. But if you get a guy that now in this day and age with media being so central to the lifeblood of any program, if you happen to have a leader that can coach them up, win games, make the right judgments when it's crunch time, and oh, by the way, is good in front of a microphone, then it just really helps brand and sell your program, both to your fan base, the media at large, and certainly recruits. And I guess a couple of quick takeaways yesterday on Coach Harsin. There may be some who say, man, why did you bring up the failed coup? I think that's probably a little bit unfair characterization. I think that it was still embarrassing, and not a good look for Auburn admin. But I think it was a little, how they got there was a little more nuanced than the media prefers to, characterize it when they got to draw clicks to the internet. But I thought the way he handled it was aggressive. I liked it. It was right out of the gate. He was not scared of that big gorilla in the room, as he called it. And he said, it was uncomfortable. It was unfounded, but it's made my team stronger. And this will be the last time I talk about it. And I'm going to steal this line somewhere in the future, Rob. And if you need to know more about it, go Google it, mother.
Look,
yeah,
I love that.
Say what you want, but I'm telling you guys. Of course, you need talent. You need elite talent to try to go toe to toe with the two kings of the SEC right now, Georgia and Alabama. Let's give them their proper, recognition of what they've built. But I'll tell you this: I don't think this is the same Brian Harsin from a year ago, getting ready to start his first season. Just something is different, Rob. Something is different. Now, he will need some breaks. He will absolutely need the O-line to live up to what he said, which is they're stronger. I don't know if every fan understands, but Malzahn asked Ryan Russell, the strength coach, to build these lean and agile and build them for endurance. Why? To run the hurry up, no huddle. The problem is the Cardinal send by Gus. He goes out and no longer runs the hurry up, no huddle. So what you get are these weaker O linemen that are getting shoved into the backfield. So what we're going to find out is you need more than 3 months to rebuild those bodies. Does the O line look different with 18 months of strength and conditioning, roughly? I'm told that you're going to notice a difference. And if they can run block even incrementally better, I think Auburn's got a great tandem in Hunter and Tank back there, and a couple other guys coming in, and these tight ends that they can load up and go. I think the identity of this offense is going to be downhill, in your face, old style Auburn football, and see if Calzada, and he's going to be the guy. Let's be real. It's going to be Zach Calzada, barring injury. And I think it will set up play action where he gets some wide open receivers, which would be something we're not used to seeing.
Doug, I'll tell you right now, those players that stayed behind remind me of a book written by Hampton Sides called Ghost Soldiers, about the rescue of 512 American POWs at Cabanatuan death camp in the Philippines, World War II, 1944. He needed volunteers for the Army Rangers there in the Philippines. And he said, look, here's the mission. He laid it out, and it was one of the most dangerous missions ever conducted by the United States military. He said, all right, I'm going to turn my back. Colonel Henry Musey from Connecticut said this. And anyone that wants to leave the room, leave the room. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but we need to know now who's committed and who's not. Not one man left that room, and they pulled off successfully the most successful rescue mission in the history of the American military. We lost one of our men, rest his soul, but you've got to have people that are committed like that, okay? And the ones that stayed behind, Derek Hall, Tank Bigsby, Owen Papo, these are guys that are not going to allow you to waver. So I think what you got in Auburn, Jimmy and Doug, is a close-knit locker room. And if you're not close-knit and willing to fight and go the extra inch, go the extra foot, the extra mile for that guy on your left or on your right, you don't need to be in that locker room. And I think the group that Auburn has now, your people are going to be shocked. The more, Doug, you and I were talking, we've been digging in deeper and deeper. I think people that are writing off Auburn, that are just all they're doing is participating in managing the decline of Auburn football, and they can all go somewhere else. But I'll tell you, I think they're going to be shocked by what I'm not saying Auburn's going to be Georgia or Alabama this year, but you know what? They start off 5-0. Anything's on the table, Jimmy.
And before Jimmy goes, Rob, let me be clear. I'm not some moron waving the orange and blue saying, we're going to go undefeated. I'm close. I want to study it a little more, but I'm real close to calling Auburn a 9-3 team, which will take some breaks and take some unlikely, winning a game ugly in a couple of cases. I don't see them ready to armed, and I don't think they have the artillery to play 4 quarters and get there and beat Alabama or Georgia. And I've got Lane Kiffin finally getting the W over Auburn at Ole Miss. But I'm just saying that some of the pundits, that are, to me, extrapolating from our, mediocre recruiting right now and the February coup. I think they're extrapolating a 1998 Terry Bowden collapse or a 2012 Gene Chizik collapse. I just don't see that with this team. And I think, maybe 7 is the right over-under, but I'm leaning after everything I'm seeing and the purging some of the kids that were kind of soft from the Malzahn era.
Yeah.
I think it's a different team than the pundits are even able to see, to be fair to them. Jimmy?
Well, I think the first 5 games are much more critical than I first thought because, that's a huge break getting those games in Jordan-Hare. You have an opportunity to play 2 really critical games there. The Penn State game is an opportunity to settle a score from last year, which was a very tight, intense, competitive game. And,
with a bad targeting call.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, it happened at the 1-yard line. It's most likely that they would have scored anyway. But nonetheless, it was 2 very evenly matched teams. And again, you could safely say that the home field was probably the difference. When you got 100,000 fans, in your corner and voicing their support and so forth, and you got a team under a first-year coach that's just trying to learn his schemes and that type of thing. And I think Auburn sees a great chance, as I mentioned earlier, to settle a score there at Jordan-Hare because it's a really tough place to play. And if they're able to win that game, their chances are really their chances are really good against Missouri at home. And then it'll be really interesting to see where LSU is by game 5.
Because, I think that's going to be a night game, Jimmy. Just a hunch.
Yeah.
Just a hunch.
For Auburn to have visions of having that surprise season, I think they really do have to go 5-0. And
100%.
We all realize that the key position there is quarterback. They've got to have not elite quarterbacks, but very efficient, mistake-free quarterback play when the quarterback can come through when he has to. A receiver doesn't have to be open by 5 yards in order to have a pass completed. The quarterback has to make accurate throws when the coverage is good, or if they're in zone coverage, to fit the ball in those windows.
Right.
I think we know their tight end play is going to be solid because it was last year. I just want to know how Gillespie's going to be able to develop that wide receiver room, because in this league nowadays, if you can't stretch the field with an effective vertical passing game and your receivers can't get separation, you're really going to struggle moving the football.
You talking about Ike Hilliard?
Yes.
Well, and great take, Jimmy. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
No, yeah. I mean, I think his position group is really critical to the success of this offense.
No question. And let me come back down to earth a little bit, because when with all the facts on the table about Harsin's second-year group of Tigers, and you step out like I'm probably going to do and call a 9-3 possibility, it draws some fire, and it should. I'm ready for that. But I just think I think the bigger worry, see if you agree, Rob, is 2023 season, because the losses Harsin is going to have of some veterans in the trenches, both sides of the ball, O-line. And you can criticize the O-line, but we haven't replaced them on the portal or recruiting front quite yet.
No.
Other than Braden Joyner, who I think's got major upside. But point being, I'm not saying Harsin is going to figure it all out and the trajectory is going to be linear, going straight up like you've seen. That's kind of how it happened with Coach Saban. I'm saying this year, this team is a little more ready for battle than the media is able to see for some interesting reason. I think that failed coup contributes to that mindset. And I'm just a little contrarian. I think this season will sort of get Harsin past the February disaster, stabilize things, and then it becomes a question: can we get our act together on NIL, portal some guys in, and can he patch together a strong enough 23 season that the Boo Birds kind of recede into the background?
And I think, too, the narrative right now, so many people are writing Auburn's narrative. They're picking out what they're going to bury him in. They've ordered the flowers, and they've got the shovels ready. Not Lee Corso's right. Not so fast, my enemies. These are not your friends that are doing that, by the way. But I think, too, guys, that it does take about 15, 18 months when you are transforming these guys' bodies and the mentality of just, you got to show up. Auburn's going to show up this year, I believe, being able to finish. They were incapable of finishing. That's why they collapsed at the end of last season. You consistently lose close games, and then you start pointing the finger at each other and infighting and stuff like that. What Auburn fans witnessed November 13th of last year against Mississippi State was the height of all that was wrong in the previous years with the strength and conditioning program. Auburn just wore out. I'm not saying these are bad kids. It's just you got to train them. I mean, you got to condition people. I mean, there are people that join the Army. The recruiters are really good, but when you sign up a guy that looks like Lumpy Rutherford from Leave It to Beaver, he shows up for basic training. He can't run past the mess hall. Okay, they put him in the fitness training unit sometimes for 3 or 4 weeks, and they catch up with another platoon going through basic. But that I think Brian Harsin showed up and was like, oh wow, how am I going to win with this?
He's an alpha. He made some mistakes his first year, true mistakes. He didn't understand the culture down here, and I think he thought he could be a hard ass with his team, and when that ran into some of the mentality, I will call it softness. Hopefully that's not too harsh. That played out as, and then you got Derek Mason, who sort of gathered his own little minions. It was sort of divisive from what I hear. He's a brilliant mind defensively. I think it's tricky when you bring a former head. We brought not one but two former head coaches in, and it just didn't work. It wasn't a fit, and Harsin's responsible for that. He might have gotten some suggestions to make those hires, but he made them, and so now and I got to go, guys, and thanks for letting me come out of the bullpen quickly. But he is going to be Frank Sinatra, Rob, this season. I did it my way. He's doing it his way with his guys, his system, his culture, and he doesn't show meaning. I don't think 7 is enough. I think he's gone with only 7 wins, but if he gets to at least 8 or my 9, and he should be a candidate for Coach of the Year with the circumstances.
Yeah, look, everything's on the table. Doug, thank you so much coming in. Wild thing. That's going to be your anytime you come out of the bullpen like that. But
and the important thing, the signal, not noise, guys, is we're just a shade under a month away from playing actual football.
That's what I love. And Doug, we've got a new guest on this morning that I met, Anwar Richardson from orangebloods.com, who covers Texas. And I'm looking, cool. He's on the line with us right now. And Doug, great stuff as always. And you know what? I'm with you. I think what happens is you got to conceive it, you got to believe it, and you can achieve it. If you don't have that mentality, though, and you're not physically in shape to do it, it leads to a lot of disappointment. But Doug,
it just means more down here. Let me say before I sign off, hook them to your guest. Can't wait to have the Longhorns playing in the SEC.
Oh shit, I'm so fired. I'm just ready for that trip to 6th Street in Austin. I've been many times. It's about to be a lot of fun. Doug, have a great one. Thank you so much.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, all right, Anwar. We have some hold music on this show that's it's pretty bad, so just don't hang up. But Jimmy, bear with us. We'll be right back after this with Anwar Richardson of orangebloods.com on this Friday morning, July 22nd. It is a great day, and we're going to talk more after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you again. Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com. And I met Anwar out on the main media room floor, Jimmy, at the College Football Hall of Fame this week. And he asked some good questions. And he was over there talking to Kirk Bowles, Austin American statesman we've had on the show, and Olin Buchanan, who will be on, as he is every week. He'll be on here in the fourth segment at 9:30 a.m. Central this morning. I tell you, the Texas guys, you got to love them. Kirk Bowles, when Lane Kiffin was asked about not wearing a tie, when Kirk asked a question, he said, let me say, first of all, I support the no tie clause. Y'all are a lot more laid back out in Texas. I love it. I'm ready to get y'all in the league now. Anwar, can you get on the phone with the president and make that happen?
I mean, I wish I could. I'm guessing to a certain degree the Big 12 wishes they can get rid of Texas and OU at the same time. Of course, they like those checks coming in, but I think it was good. It's one of the things I noticed was that there seems to be a good reception about Texas, joining the SEC. It seems so natural when you just think about the SEC and the brand and everything like that. It just seems like a natural fit. They have Texas that's in there. Texas and OU obviously are going to be coming in there. And but yeah, when you start talking about road trips and look, you guys have been all throughout the South. Being able to add an Austin trip in there, that means you guys come in on a Thursday, not just a Friday thing. You come in on a Thursday. You hang out on the lake. You hit 6th Street. You get all the good barbecue that's down here. Like it's going to be a fun times when this thing finally happens.
Well, Olin Buchanan talks. He's from White Oak, Texas, and I've been out all over Texas. Jimmy used to live out there. I'm telling you, all my kids' grandparents are from Harlingen, San Angelo, Round Rock, Fort Worth. It's an incredible state, and I think the cool thing is there's going to be a serious barbecue rivalry between the people in the, Ole Miss and the Arkansas and the Mississippi State fans and Vandy that know the Memphis style barbecue. Then you got Franklin's barbecue and you got all that out there. But I'm just glad. And we talked about it a lot. It just blows my mind. Texas, you got every resource in the world. And Jimmy hinted on this a couple of weeks ago. It's going to just make it, I think Texas football is going to transform. This is my gut prediction quickly back up to really, really high standard that they're known for. They're one of the top winningest programs in the history of college football because kids are going to get more fired up about signing with Texas. Look what Arch Manning has done to them to be part of this SEC schedule. So I'm with you, Anwar, and looking forward to having you on with us frequently talking about the Horns. Jimmy, you spent a lot of time living in Texas. Jump on here with Anwar Richardson of orangebloods.com.
Yeah, my daughter was born at Seton Medical Center.
Oh, wow.
And I was just kind of curious about 2 or 3, I think, big stories at Texas. Number one is Quinn Ewers. He was 2 years ago rated the top dual threat quarterback in the country in the high school football ranks. He originally had committed to Texas, and then when things seemed to get a bit chaotic, he decommitted in that final Herman year, and then was hoping to play his senior year at South Lake Carroll, but when the Texas Supreme Court made the ruling that high school players couldn't have NIL deals, then right in the middle of preseason camp, he goes to Ohio State, has no chance to compete for the job there because of the timing, but yet made himself quite a bit of money Now he's back at Texas, and I'm sure they're really glad to have him. But the first question is, how did he look in a spring practice? What are his chances of being the starter, if not opening day? How long do you see him being a legitimate candidate to be the starter? And of course, we all know Alabama comes to Austin in week 2. And then what happens with a Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning quarterback room in 2 years?
Good questions. So, as relates to what's going to happen this season, I anticipate, and I think the majority of us anticipate that Quinn Ewers is going to be the opening day starter. There's a multitude of factors that play into it, but one is obviously that Quinn is a former 5-star. 2, he does have a great arm. He also has some good feet on him. Things didn't work out in Ohio State, but that just seemed to be just not a good fit for him. And sometimes certain things aren't a good fit. Young man first time away from home. All those kind of things kind of factor into like why things just didn't work out for him over there. But he's going to come over here and really, last season, and you guys are very well aware, Hudson Card, beats out Casey Thompson to be the starting quarterback. And then they go on the road against Arkansas. And you guys saw what happened. And so the thing is while Hudson Card may look great in practice, when the bullets started flying and it was actually game time, he struggled. So the problem is, how can you really gain the trust of a Steve Sarkisian when he got burned last year? Believing that same thing. I think for Steve Sarkisian and the Texas program, it's about starting to build, and you're going to build around Quinn Ewers. Like that. That's the guy. That's who he recruited. That's his first really major recruit. He also got Malik Murphy, who's from California, but Hudson Card is a Tom Herman guy. So I think you're going to see Steve Sarkisian really start building around the young man, getting him ready. As relates to Arch, the plan as of right now is for Arch to redshirt. So the plan and the thought process is Quinn Ewers will play in 2022. He'll play in 2023, and the belief system is that he'll be good enough to come out after 2023, and then paving the way for Arch to play in 2024. So the things are all about the development of quarterbacks. They're not in a rush to get Arch out on the field. They understand, how tough it is for young quarterbacks, and hell, if anybody understands quarterbacking, I think it would be the first sports, right? So, I just think that there seems to be a thought process that they can do right now with Quinn. They've got Bijan Robinson, who we could view as the number 1 running back in the country. They've got Xavier Worthy as a receiver. They got Zaire Nayor through the transfer portal as another receiver out of Wyoming. They've got a good tight end room. Offensive line is going to be a work in progress, but they feel like they've got enough weapons. Roshan Johnson as a backup running back, by the way, who's very good as well. And they feel like they've got enough weapons to be good enough and be competitive. So I think you'll start seeing Quinn this season. The main thing is just get past Alabama in week 2, somewhat unscathed, and then kind of build off of that going forward and when you start getting into conference play.
Well, you might call that 11 a.m. kickoff in early September in Austin, Texas, grilling out. It's going to be hot. It is going to be really hot. And it's not that it's not hot in Tuscaloosa. I got to go back over to Tuscaloosa tomorrow on the way back to Memphis. We're still here in Atlanta where we've been for SEC Media Days all week. But, Jimmy, tell that story about Tom Herman visiting with the Texas high school coach, and then about what happened in that meeting. He was telling him about some of the top players and how Herman reacted. I'm curious what Anwar's take will be on that.
Yeah, this story was in The Athletic just before last season, and it involved Herman visiting an unnamed high school coach in West Texas. My guess it would be somewhere like Odessa Permian, Midland Lee, Abilene Cooper, somewhere like that. And what the article involved was that they I interviewed anonymously 25 influential high school coaches in Texas and and coordinators, because those guys, a lot of listeners won't realize this, but those coordinators make pretty good money at the high school level in Class 5A. I mean, they would be blown away by it. But they ask about how recruiting was going and how the new coaching staff under Sark was doing with the influential coaches that you need to develop relationships with. And the feedback was very good. But one guy told the story of Herman visiting this West Texas coach I was telling you about, and the head coach had a list of players in his district or region in which he felt might be able to help Texas down the road. I mean, in other words, a list of players that the Longhorns needed to consider, take a look at, and just see if they felt that these kids would be good enough maybe to recruit seriously. And so he gave the list to Herman, and the discussion went on. Herman left about 45 minutes later, and when he left the room, he left the list on the desk. The head coach basically said, that really pissed me off. And you cannot do that in Texas. And I mean, you'll know, when I was there, the culture's a big deal. Texas fans wanted John Malkovich. They like their head coach to drink long necks. They don't like for their head coach to drink wine, and that was a big deal. And it would seem to everybody else trivial, but you have to fit into the culture there. And if you don't realize that, and you don't adapt, and you don't realize what coaches you have to have in your corner at the high school level, you're going to have some problems.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's two-pronged into that thing. I think, first and foremost, in the state of Texas, probably more so than any other state, the high school coaches definitely want to feel like they're a part of the process and want to feel like they have a little bit of say-so and influence. And so, you're going to have that. Now, the tricky part is kind of the last thing of what you said, a little bit, which is, a lot of these kids, the high school coach isn't the person that really guides the recruiting process for them. It's the 7-on-7 coach. It's the strength and conditioning coach and these specialized trainers. Like, a lot of those people end up being the ones that are kind of leading the train. So there's, I think high school coaches across the country, especially when you talk about elite guys, there aren't always the gatekeepers like they once used to be. But now to the overall thing, when the high school coaches were upset with Charlie Strong at one point because they felt like he didn't connect with them. And then some of the things happened with Tom Herman. Now they did have two top 5 recruiting classes. So it looks like, but to whatever that person's offense is, I'm sure, there's a valid reason, for it. So, but yes, you definitely have to, being the coach at the University of Texas is like being a politician. You've got to be able to go out there and you've got to be able to kiss the babies. And, that's what Mac Brown was always great at.
Yeah.
Mac Brown was the guy who could go out and shake hands and kiss the babies and make everybody feel like they were part of it and part of the community and this and that. Tom Herman kind of went by the beat of his own drum. I think you get a little bit more of that with Sarkisian. You can see how they're recruiting so well, but he also connects with the high school coaches. He's very personable. And that's probably why you can see, that's how you get, these elite of the elite guys across, not only in the state, but across the country. You see that with Steve Sarkisian and that recruiting.
Anwar, in your opinion, you've seen a lot of coaches in your time at orangebloods.com, but just covering college football. Sarkisian, I think, matured a lot, and you have to be on the staff with Nick Saban. But he's also taken away a lot from his experiences at Southern Cal and Washington and whatever. And I think that makes him a better coach and more understanding and empathetic. I mean, the recruiting process is intense. And I've followed Texas for a long, long time. And they and Jimmy, you know this, and a lot of our listeners do. We have listeners all over the place, but I just to give an idea, like people I know involved with Texas say, you've got, and somebody we were talking about just all the planes flying in. And I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who knows some of the coaches very well on the Texas staff from their days at Alabama. And it was interesting. He said, some days there'll be 60 or 70 jets flying in, and guys coming over and riding around practicing their golf course and in their golf carts, and hey, let's do this, let's do that. Imagine a bunch of J.R. Ewings on the sidelines with a lot of money. You got to listen to them. You got to pay attention to them. But does Steve Sarkisian, in your opinion, and you're around that program, I picked up on it real fast. You have forgotten more than most people know about what's going on at Texas. You love what you do, and you're damn good at what you do. Does he look like he's in absolute control? Because one of the things that's made Nick Saban, in my opinion, successful at Alabama is there are a lot of boosters at Alabama with a lot of money and some big names. But he said, I'm going to be the voice of Alabama football. It all goes through me. Are you sensing that with Steve Sarkisian at Texas?
Yeah, I would say Sarkisian has kind of adopted that mold and that model. But not in a way that's a tyrant, if that makes sense. Like,
or combative. He's not telling
guys. Yeah, he's not telling guys don't come to practice or don't this and that. Like, no, he has those guys come to practice, and he does have communication with those people. He's very very diplomatic as far as that is concerned. But you don't sense that there's other people that are pulling the strings. When it's all said and done. Like, I think that the boosters here are very invested in his success and want him to be successful. I mean, this is a starving fan base. Okay, like this is a fan base that hasn't seen a Big 12 championship since 2009. They've been to one Big 12 championship game since that. That was in the 2018 season. So, this is a fan base that's starving and really willing to do whatever it takes. And so they're getting behind Sarkisian. You can obviously see through NIL. They're getting behind Sarkisian, and that's going to be a big factor, going in, going forward, when, you start talking about what the haves and the have-nots can be. Texas has money, and the one thing that's going to give them an advantage is there's a lot of other states out there that are not producing, new millionaires every single year. We've got no shortage of that here in Texas, as you guys know.
Exactly.
I mean, so, there's you got it, you want it, you can have it. So he'll have this. He has the support. He has everything in place, and he's a really good communicator. He's clearly an effective leader. All that he's got. It's almost like everything is on the table for him. He's just got to piece it together. I think the only challenge that Steve Sarkisian has is just the best version of himself. He's the guy that, right now on his resume, he hasn't had more than 8 regular season wins. So, he got to 9 with a bowl game, but 8 has been his mark. So Steve Sarkisian still has to just be the best version of himself. He didn't, have a lot of success last year, but, he feels good about the things that he's building. They're recruiting well. They're bringing in the big bodies. He feels like he's building this team for long-term success. And like you said, the program and the boosters absolutely want that. I don't sense any kind of jeopardy or anything to that effect. I haven't heard people upset or anything to that effect. People just want results. And, he definitely put enough in place for you to think and believe that he's got, he should be able to piece it together sooner than later.
Yeah. And one other one, Anwar, when you look at Texas, the high school, about 400 Division I players a year come out of the state, and everybody in America shops in Texas. They, a lot of years you look up, honestly, 15 or 20% of the Division I starting quarterbacks in America are from the state of Texas. Is Steve Sarkisian, you've already got A&M with a 10-year head start in the SEC. I think it's going to change now because Texas will be able to offer what A&M has had a 10-year lead on. Now, also, and I know A&M, they may not like it, but as a fan of college football, a purist, all of our listeners, Jimmy and I, you can't, I mean, come on, Texas A&M, that was growing up a ritual like having turkey on Thanksgiving Day. So, I mean, it's just going to be so cool having Texas coming into this league, and Oklahoma, and they're going to keep the Red River Classic. I mean, that's at the fair. I mean, so I think the Longhorn Network will be gone, but all in all, if a business deal means 1 + 1 = 3, sign me up, man. And that's what it is, bringing Texas and Oklahoma in the league. So it's going to be, God, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, what's going to be great is, you guys were there hearing, Sankey talk about the importance of region rivalries, right? And, I think that college football fans, especially old school guys like us, we've been denied. We've been denied of having a Texas A&M of rivalry ever since A&M went into the SEC. And A&M did, when you look back on that, they had a lot of vision of what the future was going to look like, and they bolted and got and really wanted to get out of Texas's shadow. And so that ended up being a good move for them. But, imagine, it's hard for us to imagine days and years. And, imagine Army and Navy not playing. Imagine Alabama and Auburn not playing, or, Michigan and Ohio State, or Michigan and Michigan State, right? Like, just imagine removing USC and Notre Dame, Georgia, Florida. You go down the list of what you think historic rivalries. Hell, if you go Ivy League, you just say Harvard, Yale. I mean, just imagine taking those things out, and then we've been denied of that. And so the great thing to the SEC is that we're going to see that rivalry renewed. You're going to see Texas versus Texas A&M. You're going to see Texas versus Arkansas every year, and then for those who don't have a chance to experience it from the SEC standpoint, you get the Texas and Oklahoma rivalry being played in the Cotton Bowl every single year. I mean, it will add and only enhance to a powerful league, and it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be a great brand of football. SEC is already built, it's already established, but I definitely think the one thing I want to kind of touch on before we go, and kind of you said something earlier, but from a recruiting standpoint and how this is probably going to help, I think it's going to help schools in the SEC, and how it's going to help Texas. It's going to help schools in the SEC to be able to expand their footprint out of just the Southeast recruiting-wise, but be able to go into the state and be able to, like USC, a Shane Beamer, when I asked about that, they now have the capability of not just saying, okay, we're going to go into Florida, South Carolina, the Carolinas, and Georgia to get stuff. Get now can come into Texas and say, hey, Mama's got an opportunity to see you play as well. Now all of a sudden that makes sense. So you're going to have programs that can walk into the state and have a reason to be here, and that helps. And I think it helps from a Texas perspective, because from recruiting wise, it's hard when every NFL draft comes by and the SEC's got like 68, like then the Big 12 has got 10 or whatever the measly number is. It's not a lot. And so being able to be a part of it, and when kids want to go to the NFL, you guys know this. When kids start days, what do they say? I'm going to take my talents first and foremost for the next 3 to maybe 4 years, right, to the University of such and such, right? Yeah. Because they all feel like they're going to go pro. And so what Texas will be able to do is now be able to say, like, you're part of a conference that you'll play against the elite, the best of the best, and have an opportunity to know yourself, and then be a part of this conference where you can eventually go pro. That will help, from a recruiting standpoint. So I think it ends up being a win-win for everybody involved.
You took the words out of my mouth, because up to this point, since A&M's been in the SEC, I'll guarantee you if I'm their coaching staff and I'm going up against the Horns on the recruiting trail for a 4 or 5 star recruit, I'm going to say, would you like to play road games at Bryant-Denny Stadium or at Tiger Stadium or at Jordan-Hare? Or would you like to play them in Ames, Iowa or in Lawrence? Yes. I mean, these are, cathedrals of college football, and for a youngster not only to be able to play their college football games in those settings, and knowing that every time you play a conference game, you're playing against multiple future NFL players, and you're going to be tested as to know really how good you are and how you're developing. I mean, you can't put a price on that. And then you get word of mouth from these players that come from, let's say, powerhouse high school programs, and the younger players at those programs hear these stories. I can't imagine that the Texas people can't wait to that time they're actually in the conference, and A&M doesn't have that recruiting message that they can't use right now.
100%. I thought your co-host was going to say something. I didn't want to interrupt. I thought he was going to say something as well.
Well, it's just, to me, I think I know we're up against the break, but it's just Texas has that ability that A&M does to say, hey, come play in the SEC. That's a great argument, Jimmy, for Texas.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's worked against them in recruiting, and Texas in recruiting in spite of that, because you got to think of, Alabama's been able to come in and hand pluck and say, okay, for years, okay, this is who I want. Georgia's been able to get a couple of guys that are out of here. A&M, they hang that SEC banner and say this is what happens, and now that's worked against Texas. For now, that's eliminated. Yeah. Now kids don't have to worry about, I'm going into Big 12 and I'm playing against and help me get ready for the league. That whole thing is eliminated. But like I said, but the flip side is other programs who's can, when they start thinking about where I can recruit. Now imagine going from Texas down, to Florida, up into Georgia and the Carolinas. Imagine that being a recruiting territory for SEC programs where all this talent is. Yeah, it's going to be pretty special. It's going to be hard to beat. I can tell you that much.
It is. Listen, Anwar, we've had a great segment with you. We were up against a hard break. We've got Lonnie Demery of Kentucky Sports Report coming up with us next. But tell people how they can follow you, and we definitely want to get you back on again here very soon.
Sure. Listen, Texas coming to SEC, so follow me on Twitter. It's Anwar Richardson, ANWAR Richardson. Pretty simplistic. I'm on Twitter. And then if you want to check out any of our videos, just get on the Texas Longhorn Football channel. We got daily videos up there. I do a thing every Wednesday called Your Drunk Uncle Sports Podcast on the Texas Longhorn Football channel. That's at 6 o'clock Central Time. So those are the easiest ways to follow me.
Hey, that might be the best name I've ever heard for a podcast. Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
No problem. Have a good day. All right, we're going to take that was awesome, your Drunk Uncle Sports Podcast. Holy shnikes. Let's take a break. We're going to be right back for the second hour of Sidelines on this Friday, July 22nd, 2022.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown here with you. Hour number 2 on Sidelines. Great stuff there, man, with Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com. And, man, guy knows his football out there in Texas. I mean, the great thing about Texas is it's a ginormous state size wise, but you got some of the best people out there, best storytellers, some of the most passionate fans. But he's right. These high school coaches, they want to be part of it. And they've got great college football out there historically, great pro football, the Cowboys, the Texans, formerly the Oilers. It's just an incredible state, but it's the one state that I can think of where high school football trumps college and NFL football. That's how big it is. And now Texas can sell to recruits playing in the SEC. That right there, it shivers me timbers there. But it really does. It'll send chills up your spine because we've seen what Texas is like when they get the ball rolling. Okay. They don't lack for anything. One of our listeners here, let me look on here. Red West from Deerfield Beach, Florida. Red West. Wasn't he involved with Elvis, but I digress. Said, does Texas have a special parking lot for the luxury automobiles driven with all the players in these big NIL deals? I mean, you can say that for a lot of schools, but it is going to be crazy when Quinn Ewers pulls up to practice in an Aston Martin, Jimmy. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah, before long, it'll be a special airfield for private jets.
Well, the thought of that is what's, I think we're going to have to just see how it plays out with, look, there are, last year there was a basketball player in the SEC who was who was a one and done, or it was 2 years ago, that was driving, I was told, a Maserati on campus before NIL deals came out. Now, this particular player's family had the money and they bought that for him. So, you always, there's always a story. Personally, if I had that kind of money, I'd give my kid a 1979 AMC Pacer colored with lime green and yellow stripes on it. So he would have no chance to get in trouble. People wouldn't be running toward him if I had that kind of money. I would want him to look like Wayne or Garth from Wayne's World. Wayne's World, party on, Garth. I mean, that you got to do something like that, or maybe a lime green Duster. Okay, that's about what you'd have to do. But Texas, man, Oklahoma, Jimmy, those fan bases, and they're going to be used to traveling. Everything is accessible by interstate and the airports. It's another thing people don't talk about enough. If when Washington played Auburn back in the beginning of the 2018 season, all those fans from the West Coast, and Washington, I'm sure, has plenty of alumni, as every school does, in Atlanta. You just fly into Hartsfield International Airport in Atlanta, get on the MARTA, take it right to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. You stay there for the game, probably go out after a while, might spend the night, get right back on the MARTA, go right back to the airport. It's going to be easy for Texas and Oklahoma to get here. Then you'll have all the RVs coming and all. But Anwar's right. You want to get down there Thursday night if you can to Austin on 6th Street. The entertainment, the food, the culture out there. Go to Lake Travis or whatever, Jimmy. I sound like a member of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, but it's an incredible place, isn't it?
Yeah, and San Antonio is only an hour away.
As you say, there are 3 cities that should host the college football playoff national championship. List them for the audience.
Well, the final 4.
Okay.
And San Antonio, New Orleans, and Indianapolis.
Because they're great walking cities.
Because they have that championship atmosphere. It's
a
party atmosphere. It's celebratory, and everything's within walking distance. And it's just the perfect environment for a championship to be decided of that stature.
Yeah, and Jimmy, when you talk that article that was in The Athletic about Tom Herman talking with the coach, and we're just guessing who it is, but there are a lot of legendary programs in the state of Texas, walking out of the room and leaving the list of the players. I would imagine Steve Sarkisian was aware of that story, and to cover all of the schools in Texas, it'll take some time. The smart man and his staff And I'm sure the Horns are all there at the Texas High School Coaches Convention. That's what, 15,000 plus head and assistant coaches there. You don't want to do like Brett Bielema did when he came to Arkansas before the start of his first season and just hurry up, no huddle offenses, 7-on-7s and the spreads and everything like that. You don't do that when you're the head football coach anywhere, especially at the University of Arkansas, because they've always done really well getting players out of Texas and Oklahoma. And now Sam Pittman has built a wall around Arkansas. Good luck going in to the natural state and getting a kid to leave right now. But Jimmy, kind of describe, we're waiting on Lonnie Demery from Kentucky Sports Report to call us, but the atmosphere and the influence you can have in a positive way or negative way in front of all those coaches.
Well, again, Saban, the day before he made his appearance last year at SEC Media Days, he spoke in front of a huge audience, and they call it there the Texas High School Football Coaches School, and it was in San Antonio, and the subject of NIL was at the forefront because it had only gone into effect 3 weeks earlier, and he was pushing the message that players can come to Alabama and be just as well off on NIL deals as at anywhere else. And he talked about Bryce Young's $1 million NIL deal to send that message home. And it was kind of humorous because it so happened that Lane Kiffin was speaking right after the news had come out about Saban's speech in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And he was asked, how much do you think somebody like Matt Corral should be getting on an NIL deal if Bryce Young's getting $1 million deal and he hadn't started a game yet at Alabama? And Lane said, well, considering that Matt's already started a year and had a lot of success, maybe $2 million, So it was classic Lane, and anytime he talks, it creates a lot of discussion everywhere. But again, 1 year into this NIL reality, a lot of things have happened that we didn't expect, although we knew it would be unpredictable. But again, I think a lot of coaches are just waiting for some guidelines and regulations to be put regarding on what schools can do as far as having some restrictions on using NIL to bring players to their school. I think they would like for it to be limited to using NIL to retain players instead of recruiting them to get them at your school in the first place.
Yeah, and that's certainly what I thought and you thought NIL would be, is once you had done something, you could cash in and parlay that and translate that into money off of your name, image, and likeness. Jimmy, Oklahoma, I didn't meet anybody, from the Oklahoma press corps. Golly, Texas. People just get ready. It's going to be like the roadies following the Grateful Dead or the Panic when Texas comes to town. Man, they just and we've been shaking our heads. 11 of the last 12 years, they've lost 4 games or more. Hell, Auburn's right in that same boat. But these are two programs that they've won a lot, and lately they've been losing 4 or 5 games a year. Last year, Texas 5-7. But just get ready, man. You're talking about the most talent-rich state in America, numbers-wise, with more money than a lot of countries. Okay, and that's the University of Texas. And Jimmy, you know it well, and I've spent a lot of time out in Texas. We're going to be spending a lot more time out in Texas, and I'm looking forward. I hope when Olin Buchanan's on, I tell you, those Texas guys, they have fun with each other. I mean, there's of course, Olin used to write for the Austin American-Statesman, one of the best sports sections around, along with arguably the greatest sports section I've ever read consistently of any newspaper in America. the Arkansas Democrat. And one of their reporters, Bob Holt, I think he got the award for asking the most questions. I mean, you talk about true grit journalists along the lines of Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, Tony Barnhart, Dennis Dodd. I watched in that room a lot of really good questions, but just going to be the Texas press corps when they come in, man. When Jimbo Fisher was up there on the podium yesterday at Media Days, golly, and again, the interest. You've got over 30 million people that we know of in the state of Texas, maybe 20 million in Florida. A lot of people have moved to Texas and Florida the last couple of years. They want to be part of something great, but just get ready. And in Oklahoma, they're going to be bringing it too. I mean, Gaylord Family Stadium, it's probably 100 years old. Oklahoma, go back, Jimmy, in the 1930s, if you've ever seen John Steinbeck's read the novel, The Grapes of Wrath, and remember the movie, in the mid 1930s, in the 30s period, it's called the Great Depression, not GREAT, but GRATE. It was horrible. Lots of people left Oklahoma and Nebraska in the middle part of the country, the Dust Bowl. But the governor of Oklahoma back in the 30s, they committed to making football at the University of Oklahoma a source of statewide pride. Not that Oklahoma State doesn't done it, because they sure as hell are too. We're in Stillwater. But the Oklahoma Sooners have won 7 national championships, 51 conference championships. They've had 7 or 8 Heisman Trophy winners. You talk about tradition. I mean, Bud Wilkinson, Barry Switzer, Bob Stoops. And an interesting bit of trivia here. What mother in America, when she puts her head on the pillow in probably by mid-September, will be able to go to bed at night and say, God bless my boys, Bobby and Mark, because they're the winningest football coaches in the history of the programs where they coached the longest. You know who that mother is?
I guess Mrs. Stoops.
That's right, Mrs. Stoops. Mark Stoops got up there and said, my mom, he goes, I think about my mom. That's all I think about. He said, and that, someone asked me about when you win the first game this year at Kentucky, you're going to break Coach Bryant's record for wins at Kentucky. And that my brother Bob at Oklahoma, who won almost 200 games, and what he's done at Kentucky, will be the winningest coaches at their respective schools. That's a trivia question. Hint over at the Hot Stone in Wynn, Arkansas. I hope that trivia question is asked, but it has to be done. Coach Stoops has to get the first win this year up in Lexington. But the job that Mark Stoops has done, and he's a funny. I mean, this is his 10th year at Kentucky, Jimmy. I'm so impressed with what he's done. And Will Levis, man, this is a guy from up around Boston, Needham, Mass. Grew up there, lived in Connecticut, went to Penn State. And when we were in the room with him in the smaller interview room after he'd been on the main stage, of course, he got the banana questions. And another thing that Will Levis, the quarterback of Penn State, does, which might make you hurl, he puts mayonnaise in his coffee. Oh, God. But anyway, he said, I didn't know what to expect at Kentucky. I've been the crowds up, obviously, in Happy Valley at Penn State. But he said, man, these Kentucky people are crazy, passionate fans. So, Jimmy, the thing that you see at these media days is you get to be just right up there with all these coaches and the players and all. But Mark Stoops, man, he's the perfect fit for Kentucky. The longer he's there, you look at it now, you've got Chris Rodriguez out of Eagles Landing Christian Academy, McDonough, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta on I-20, leading returning rusher in the Southeastern Conference. Cavassier Smoke. Hey, Auburn. Hey, Alabama. How'd you miss this guy? He's from Wetumpka over there on Lake Martin. But their reach is expanding, isn't it, Jimmy? Jimmy, are you there? Bueller, anyone? It's
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I lost you for a
I
second.
think anybody in the SEC now, with just the exposure that the league has a shot at getting just about anybody. But there's so many players out there. There's always going to be diamonds in the rough that not everybody is going to be in on. And I think we also have to consider the fact with the 85 scholarship limit, you can't get them all. There's a lot of teams out there that can have a shot at some players by just going to a school and maybe talking to the most highly celebrated player, but it also gives members of coaching staffs an opportunity to talk to those high school coaches and get an idea. Hey, do you have 3 or 4 players that might be under the radar prospects that haven't gotten much publicity that can have a very high ceiling? So there's a lot of opportunities that coaches have that the average a fan might not be aware of that can become really significant contributors to a lot of these programs. So there's a lot of angles to recruiting under the radar that don't always include these 5-star guys that have been talked about for years.
And, Kentucky, what they have is for the kids in the SEC, and understand Lonnie Demery of Kentucky Sports Report is trying to call in. He's actually on his way back from SEC Media Days, and he keeps trying to get in, and the connection is so bad. So don't want to say he didn't call in. He's trying, and if it doesn't happen today, we're going to get Lonnie back on here soon. Man knows his Kentucky Wildcat sports, and might work out better because we can have Glenn Waldrop, proud son of Owenton, Kentucky. How far is that from Butcher Holler? That's where Loretta Lynn was from. Loretta, come and get it. But anyway, Jimmy, the Kentucky, again, their fan base, and I asked this question and I asked it to Will Levis. I asked it to Mark Stoops. Do you feel like you have arrived at Kentucky as a football coach when your fan base gets as mad as they do after a basketball loss? They get that mad after a football loss. It's important because once that happens, they'll say, okay, what do you need to get over the hump? And there are people already circling the calendar for the game. Is it October 18th when Georgia, the defending national champions, is that when they travel to Lexington? Holy cow. Is that when Keeneland opens? Bourbon, horses, football? I mean, tell me something better than that. Only if you had the beach, it might be better. But Jimmy, I think Kentucky's got a lot of games before that, but that is a sign of where Kentucky football is. Again, 2 10-win seasons in the last 4 years. Mark Stoops, hell of a coach.
Well, he's done a tremendous job there. The Kentucky administration gave him time to develop, a system, a process, and they really came through with facilities. And he's done a great job recruiting. He's been able to move into that Youngstown, Eastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania area from where he was born and raised, and has had no trouble selling the message of those youngsters being able to compete in the SEC. And it just tells you that kids from every region of the country want to play in the SEC. And that's why I really think there's no reason for any SEC program not to have good players.
Oh, no question. And again, you tell these kids up there in Kentuckiana, Big Ten country, hey, why don't you play in the SEC? Look at this schedule we've got. And like Anwar said, your mom and dad, your family, they can come see you play and it's SEC. Look at the draft picks. Now, the only school close to the SEC in draft picks is the Big Ten. And they're the ACC some years, but they play good football in the Big Ten. Don't get me wrong. But the SEC, 19 national championships in the last 50 years. The Big Ten, 2.5. So I think that trend is going to continue to grow in the favor of the SEC. Even with UCLA and Southern Cal coming in, I favor the SEC in that respect.
Well, again, the more tough opponents you play in conference play, I think gives you a big advantage because when you play stronger competition every week, you don't get away with mistakes that you can get away with in weaker leagues that don't have the personnel that can make you pay for it when you're not playing at a high level. And I think that's another reason that SEC teams have been so successful in playoff situations, and even when we had a two-team national championship scenario with the BCS. So again, I just think that's a huge advantage that a lot of people tend to overlook. I know there are certain teams in other conferences that go undefeated a lot of years, but again, they maybe get tested 2 or 3 times, and then when they play for a national championship, they're playing a team that's had a lot of close games, and they're not uncomfortable, or they don't get panicky when you get in tight situations when the game's on the line, even if a national championship is at stake. So I just don't think it can be overstated how important that is.
Well, playing and winning a lot of close games is like if you've ever ridden the pack mules from the top of the Grand Canyon down to the bottom, and that trail that you go on, it's really dicey. I mean, you don't have much wiggle room. I'm talking mere inches, and you could go off the side of the cliff, and it's not going to end well. But when you do it successfully, go from the top of the Grand Canyon to the bottom, come back up, the more you do that, the more confident you feel. Not that you're careless and reckless, but you're confident. When you win those close games against quality competition, it makes you so much better. And I win a lot of crystal burgers on these kind of bets. A team is blowing everybody they play out, 70-3, 63-7, 56-0. Then they play a team that's pretty darn good too. Maybe they're 8-1, 9-2. That's been in a lot of close games too, but they've been in a lot of close games. Even the ones they won by a touchdown or 10 points, and they'll beat that team that's been blowing everybody out. It's just like in a 5K. If everywhere you race, you're going in there kind of a ringer and just running against really no competition, all of a sudden you show up and the big boys are there. Some cross-country runner from the University of Arkansas or the West Plains, Missouri Zizzers. They got so many state championships on the T-shirts. I remember they had to do front and back. You're not prepared. Mentally, it does wonders for you in development when you play better competition, and that's what's going to happen with Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, it's not like Oklahoma hadn't been winning lately. Good grief. They just stack them and whack them out there. National champion. Well, they're in contention for the national championship every year. It's been a while since they won it. Bob Stoops played 4 times. He was 1-3, but he was in the big game 4 times. A lot of programs have never been in the big game. You know, we always talk about Texas is down or whatever. Texas is still one of the top 4 or 5 winningest programs in the history of college football. And when you and don't tell Arkansas people beating Texas doesn't matter. Don't tell Texas A&M people that beating Texas doesn't matter. They're still Texas. Okay. If Led Zeppelin gets back together and Richard Branson offered them $800 million to do it, but Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page, they hadn't done it yet. But it may take $1 billion. But when it happens, no one's going to ask what the tickets cost, because remember, cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value. By the way, Jimmy, next time you're in Atlanta, and everybody listening, my wife goes, you got to try this place. When I lived here, I used to eat at around Perimeter Mall in Atlanta, in Dunwoody, La Madeleine's. I went there last night and got this thing called the Audrey, what's it called? The chicken friend, the chicken Freon. Oh my gosh. Again, the ultimate compliment that I'm going to give food is if you're walking the Green Mile, you eat 3 or 4 chicken Freons and you might explode because, the complimentary, death row meal always includes a tub of ice cream. Chicken Freon. It is, I can't even describe it. At La Madeleine's up around Perimeter Mall, in Perimeter Mall in Dunwoody. It was unbelievable. But the more good food that you eat, the more you want to work out. I'll just say that. Jimmy, we're going to be joined here in just a minute by Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com. And one of the things too, listen, the last few days, SEC Media Days, boy, you better wear your running shoes or your hiking boots because you are going to walk. But the logistical masterpiece of the Omni, North Tower, South Tower, SEC meetings there, Media Days, going through the connectors into the College Football Hall of Fame, it's absolutely incredible. Again, thanks to Kimberly Bowden, the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame, and her incredible staff. And we're going to have Kent Stevens, the historian for the College Football Hall of Fame, hopefully can join us early next week. Make it a point to visit the Hall of Fame. Let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back talking some more college football on this Friday morning, July 22nd of 2022.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you on Sidelines. And, I mentioned La Madeleine. Just got this from Clyde Gustafson. I frequented a La Madeleine in Sacramento when I lived there. Delicious. And I got to tell you, I got that, had one there, got another one to go, the chicken Freon, or as my wife Audrey calls it, chicken friend. It's my chicken friend. I tell you what, Delta the dog was like going, how can you have a friend who is a chicken if you're going to eat him? He's not a friend. He's not a friend. Okay, another one, if Michael Sag is out there listening, Hall and Oates. Who needs oats? It's all about Daryl Hall, isn't it, Audrey? But Michael Sag is a big proponent of oats. But Starsky and Hutch, the Dukes of Hazzard. Who was the dark-headed guy? Anybody know what his name was? Tom Wopat. What kind of name is Tom Wopat? But anyway, Jimmy, I tell you what, man, this has just been an incredible week. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have Stuart Carter, Stat Tiger, on with us with some more amazing statistics about college football, where we're going. Kevin Skarbinski will join us again in the morning after that. And Coach Safely, looking forward. I got to talk to Kevin. He was there at Media Days. And in hour number 2, man, we're going to have a ball. I mean, we're just going to get into it with Buddy Martin. We're going to get into it with Frank Duffy is going to be with us. Philip Marshall is going to be with us, veteran sports writer, son of legendary editor of the Birmingham News, Benny Marshall. Philip had some great questions yesterday. Philip's one of the more likable people out there. When he asks questions, it's like Andy Griffith just asking you a question about something. He's just one of those guys, just like Mark Murphy and Jason Caldwell. I met a lot of great people there that we didn't know, and we'll be adding them to our team here on Sidelines. And again, Jimmy, you lived in Texas a lot. There's just the writers out there. There's something about, Kirk Bowles. I don't think Kirk Bowles is amazing. He and Olin Buchanan were sitting there side by side, just pecking away. Again, they look like courtroom reporters in the trial of the century. That's when I met Anwar Richardson, because of orangebloods.com, who was on with us in the first hour, came over to talk to those guys. They all know each other. They all have, to me, looked like a really good relationship, and they love football. They love covering what we love talking about. And I'm telling you, Jimmy, Greg Sankey and the coaches that were there, like Jimbo Fisher, man, and these different coaches up on the podium. Hey, thanks to all of y'all for covering the sport that we coach and getting our message out and telling our stories. I think people don't understand the relationship. I think they feel it or view it as adversarial, coaches and the media. Well, I'll just say this. There are two kinds of people out there in the media, two groups people fall into. There are those that are just trying to get it first, and they'll splatter anything up against the wall like, you know what I'm talking about. I hope something sticks. They don't care what they do to people's reputations and families and all. And then there are people who say, don't do anything and get it until you know it's right. Get it right or don't do it at all. But they dig and they dig and they dig. And I'm telling you, when you're around those kind of writers, people like Tony Barnhart, Dennis Dodd was there, so many good writers, and you watch how they do it. They go over and they still old school. They talk to those coaches, talk to those players, and they like to try to pull them over one-on-one. You can't always do it, but they like to do it. And what's said that is off the record is kept off the record. What's on the record is on the record. But just got a ton of respect for those Texas sports writers, like this one right here from White Oak, Texas, who got in about 1 o'clock in the morning and found his phone in the bag next to his submarine sandwich he probably got on the airport that he never would eat. Olin Buchanan, thanks for joining us, man. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I got distracted.
Don't worry about it, man.
So I was a little bit late.
Hey, don't worry. We had another guest on, got in, and we were trying to get the connection to work. He's driving back up to Kentucky. Lonnie Demery from Kentucky Sports Report, and I said, look, let's just reschedule it next week. It's been a long week, but it's been a productive week. But it was cool to meet you in person. You sat there next to Kirk Bowles, and honestly, y'all did look like courtroom reporters covering the trial of the century. True grit journalism is alive and well. And gig 'em Aggies. Let's talk some college football, Olin.
Let's do that.
All right.
What's on your mind?
Well, what was your takeaway from what you witnessed? You were there for all 14 coaches in that main room, the players and all. And what a way to go out. Maybe the Captain Obvious question of the day was asked. Somebody asked about Jimbo. They said, Jimbo, why do you talk so fast? And he said, hey, man, I'm trying to get out as much information as I can, as quick as I can. Hell, I'm a reporter's dream, baby. I thought that was great.
Yeah, until you have to transcribe the quotes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it takes a long time.
Yeah, it does.
Because Jimbo talks like Barry Sanders runs. Fast, changing directions. You never know where it's going to end. Spinning right. So, but, that's part of the thing that just makes him Jimbo. But, yeah, there's, it's like every year, there's always one or two national issues. And of course, this year's NIL. So everybody's asked about NIL, and then they tell you things about their team that for the most part, they've been saying for the last, 5 or 6 months anyway. There's rarely a whole lot of new news. But it's one of those things you go to, and I think, SEC media days are kind of like, Rob, I don't know, when you were a kid, what was the best thing your mother cooked for dinner? What's your favorite thing? And so think about that, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I think of maybe it's her fried chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think of SEC media days as like walking into the door when mama's cooking your favorite meal. And, it's not ready yet. It's not on the plate, but the aroma's there and it smells good and it makes you just hungrier for what's coming. And I think that's what the SEC media days is like for me. It's just like, it's not, we're not ready to get to the table, but now we can smell it and it smells good and it just makes you hungrier for football season coming up.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for the record, my favorite meal of my mom is chicken leg and thigh quarters marinated in Wickers on the grill, smoked with green beans and consomme, macaroni and cheese, and a salad. Woo-hoo! God, I'm getting hungry thinking about it, Olin.
Throw that salad in there. You gotta get something healthy.
Gotta have our greens, man. Jimmy, jump in this conversation with Olin Buchanan at TexAgs.com. And again, Olin, thank you so much. I know it's been a wild week, but we always appreciate you taking time to be with us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Olin, well, what was your summation of the 4 days, what you would have considered highlights and things that stuck out for you?
Well, I have to admit, I do things differently than most. And my highlight was just the way Mike Leach carries himself, and he gives me his opening statement. I don't know why we have an opening statement.
Well, yeah, he did not. He didn't even make an opening. Wasn't his opening statement 7 words? Yeah. Olin, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah. But I think Mike Leach's, I counted them. They had the number of words in each coach's opening statements. Mike Leach, you ready for this? 7 words.
Yeah. So, hey, let's get down to business, right?
Yeah.
But no matter how silly the question may appear, Mike answers it like it's the most serious. Like you're asking him about national security question. It's important to him. So, but again, everybody talked about NIL as they would. And I guess when one thing that stuck with me is when you're Kirby Smart, you're saying we're not complacent, and he, that's one of those things that if he has the indeed a really good feel for his team and they're not complacent. Why aren't they? Why not be a team that can win the national championship again, despite all their losses? Because they have recruited so well. I'm sure they have good depth and all things. But and then if they do struggle, well, maybe that comes back. That statement, somebody comes back and use it to criticize him later. But he struck me as all coaches are confident in July. Now, some coaches are more confident than they should be. And when Clark Lee says Vanderbilt is going to be the best program in college football, I'm sorry, I have to raise my BS flag a little bit and ask him, what to be more specific. Are you talking about the best in terms of GPA? Or W's and L's, because I'll believe the GPA, but I'm gonna be skeptical on the W. No, but that's what it's for. It's for going out there and be having some fun and just setting the table, the table with that aroma.
Yeah,
with the out there.
Well, I'm with you. I mean, look. But if Clark Lee has said a few things since he became the head football coach at Vanderbilt. Like, we want young men to make the decision to come to Vanderbilt because they want to come here and play football, not just for the education. That's a Captain Obvious moment there, okay? But to say we want you to come here because we want you to win in football. I remember a football coach telling me one time about a conversation he had with a kid about there were 2 of them, and one of the kids was the top 10 player in his state. And all he talked about was going into the pre-med program and being a doctor. This other kid, he said, what are you going to do? He goes, I'll do what I got to do. He goes, but I want to get to the NFL. And so, you just, how important, you got to be able to focus, and football better be important to you if you're coming in the SEC. If you're coming to Vanderbilt, you've got so much against you in terms of the requirements to get in school, but they got Peabody, but we'll see what happens. But I wanted to say this too. just Nigel just reminded me of this. Since we switched to the format August 2nd of 2021, going 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee and the Caney Fork and the Johns River. This is our 302nd show of Sidelines in less than a year. You know, like somebody told me there at Media Days, some of these people say, yeah, I do a podcast. They've done 5 or 6. They do one every few weeks or every few months. That's 302 in less than a year. Jimmy, all of our guests, like you, Olin Buchanan, all of our guests, our listeners, our sponsors, my producer, my wife, who's getting a raise, Olin, to $3.07 a day. Congratulations, Audrey. But thanks for making all this stuff happen, because you know what? It's never feels like work. It never is old. It never gets boring. And again, when you have folks like Olin Buchanan on here who really, really are true grit journalists and take seriously what they do, but also have fun and laugh about it, because you can't take yourself too seriously. But this is what it's all about, Sidelines, sports radio show and podcast. So just wanted to get that in. This is our 302nd show in less than a year, and we hadn't even gotten started yet. There's so much more to come, so looking forward to it. But Olin, you know, again, the excitement. It is July. Everybody's undefeated. A lot of our listeners are sitting down on the beach. It could be at South Padre Island. Could be on 30A at Grayton Beach. Could be down in Naples at the Peninsular Club with Thurston Howell, the 5th, 6th, and 7th, wearing their ascots and their captain and Tennille hats. But people right
could
now,
be like Larry Munson saying, all those dog people down on
all
Jekyll
those
Island.
dog people up on Jekyll Island and St. Simon's with those condos for 4 days. Man, is some property going to be destroyed tonight? Larry, what do you got?
They're everywhere.
Everywhere. Sugar falling from the sky. Sugar falling from the sky. Jimmy, jump back into this in this melee. But Olin, you have, by the way, and we just started bringing you on the show since last year, but you are so comfortable in the SEC. And like Coach Dye said, Texas A&M into the SEC with all that tradition and the reverence they have for the buildings on campus, for the Corps of Cadets, and that Collie Dog Reveille. I can't think of a better fit, and I feel the same way about you being on Sidelines. Jimmy, jump back in.
Yeah, Olin, what was it like spending 4 days at SEC Media Days with Kirk Bowles, and what was the impression you got from him, the way he kind of assessed the event?
Well, first of all, understand Kirk and I are close friends, and we worked together for right next to each other for 11 years. And he was a mentor of mine, taught me so much. So it's kind of like as I told him, I said first I felt like it was like getting to spend a week with your dad. And then I said, no, I reassessed it. I said, no, you've gotten up there in years. It's more like spending a week with your granddad. So we had fun. So that was great. And his reason to be there, of course, is to start. Well, of course, he writes stuff about A&M from time to time, because there's probably 100,000 or more Aggies living in the Austin area, maybe a lot more than that. So he's going to serve them as well. But to give those the folks from Texas back home, those Longhorn folks, a chance, an idea of what they're getting into. And so he wanted to ask everybody that might be going to play Texas if the SEC goes to that 3-6 model, which I think they will, how they felt about playing Texas. And so, he went there to ask questions that would be, pertaining to Texas, and I completely understand that. But and he's been out there before, because he about 4 or 5 years ago was the president of the Football Writers Association of America, so he knew what to expect. But once you go back after he hadn't been up to SEC Media Days for like 5 years, and you see it again, and you talk about, well, it's just not the same. He says, this is just not the same as going to the Big 12 Media Days. I said, well, that doesn't just mean the more. Haven't you heard? But yeah, that's what he was there. He wanted to ask Sam Pittman, what do you think about playing Texas all the time? And of course, Sam said, I'd love it. And why wouldn't you? if you're going to play Texas all the time and not Alabama all the time, I think most sane people would see that as a win.
Well,
do you get the impression that the SEC may be holding off on these 3-6 alignments on who the permanent opponents are going to be in these pods, and then because I know they're trying to say, well, the 1-7 or the one permanent opponent or two permanent opponent alignment is still in play, but I don't see any way. Oh no, the 1-7 and the 3-6, and I don't see any way that the 1-7 is going to happen. But with the 3-6, I found it interesting in Sankey's opening statement that he said we're really happy at 16 right now, and I think he got an inquiry maybe about if Texas and Oklahoma might be leaving early, but it just sounded like from his statement that they're just going to go ahead and finish out the current contract because they've done a lot of work on this 3-6, and I think they spent a lot more time deciding on which teams are going to be in each pod. So therefore, the Texas and Oklahoma are going to play the last 3 years in the league. Did you get any more feedback from among your peers there about maybe if Horns and Sooners are going to come to the league early, or they're going to stay in the Big 12 for 3 more seasons?
Well, a lot of speculation. I think we've talked about this before, and I didn't hear anything different other than speculation. But again, could be as early as next year. Might not be, but could be because of the new commissioner at the Big 12 doesn't have an axe to grind against Texas and Oklahoma. They didn't betray him. So if you were Bob Bowlesby, and if, as has been reported as a possibility, if ESPN comes to you and say, hey, we're going to come up with a Big 12 channel to replace the Longhorn Network, Bob Bowlesby, and I'm not saying he would, but he might have been, spiteful. Well, no, we want those guys to pay their exit fee if they're going to leave. But when you have a new commissioner who's going to say, look, guys, this is what we got to do. They're going to be leaving anyway. If this is a true opportunity, take the network, let them go, and let's move on because we're going to have to anyway, at least get something out of it. It's like, in baseball, you trade the guy while he still has some value. Now, I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but that's kind of the speculation. But, I have come to learn over the last 10, 15 years, expect the unexpected in college football or at least don't let anything surprise you because everything's a possibility and there's no contract that can't be broken or renegotiated in college football.
And you got to wonder, and you talked about that contract. We mentioned it on the show a number of times. The ACC is married until 2036 to that ball and chain of a contract with ESPN, and you would think they could renegotiate it. I mean, what about a buyout? Coaches have buyouts. Coaches are fired. Mike Gottfried, I'll never forget him talking to the Touchdown Club in Memphis one time. He said, I was a coach at Pitt and had a hell of a year in 1986 or 87. Got a lifetime contract. I was fired a year later. I'm still alive. I mean, it's just, crazy stuff happens. But I like that, and Kirk Bowles was asking a lot of questions, and I go to that Arkansas. I mean, the Hog fans, it took them a while, especially for the older fans, to integrate into the Southeastern Conference. They still had that yearning for the days of all the Texas rivalries, and then they watched the Big 12. But now Arkansas fans are immersed in the SEC. Throw in a 9-4 season last year, a big win over Texas, a win, breaking the 9-year losing streak to Texas A&M. That's huge. And they played Alabama to 42-35 in Tuscaloosa in a track meet. And then you look at A&M. What was your takeaway from what Jimbo talked about up there? He is a fired up, emotional guy. He's very smart. He's one of the 2 coaches in the league from West Virginia. And I believe Jimbo's mother, if she's still living, is a school teacher. And I think she still teaches school, but he loves.
I don't know if she still teaches, but she's still alive.
Yeah.
I know that.
But he's really proud of where he came from. And also got that. You remember when Billy Napier was talking, Florida's coach? He really loves, he identifies with working class Americans from up in textile mill country in South Carolina. He went to Furman, very proud of it. His father coached from the wheelchair when he had ALS, and that really inspired him. And I got a chance to meet Billy Napier, just talk to him for a few minutes. He's a very personable guy. Buddy Martin of Gator Bait Media always says, don't fall in love on the first date. But every one of these coaches, they wouldn't be in this position unless there was a lot of positive about them and they were really good salesmen, would they?
Well, absolutely. I mean, very, very rarely are you going to see a guy with absolutely no personality, in that position. In fact, most of them have great personalities. They just don't always show it to the media because they're very guarded. And that's just the way things are now. I was moved when, or I should say impressed, for lack of a better word, with Billy Napier when he was just asked about his father, and you saw the raw emotions start to build up. His father passed away a few years ago from Lou Gehrig's disease. So,
yeah.
But to talk about the influence his dad was a high school coach that his dad had on him. I think it's just one of those moments when you see those coaches that so often again are guarded and don't want to reveal too much of themselves. And then when you see that a moment when a coach like that can't hide it, I think you get a glimpse into who they really are when they're not, having to make sure they're towing the politically correct line.
Yes.
And it gives you an idea of what that personality and what kind of person he may really be when he's interacting with the recruits and his team and the people that really matter to him.
Yeah, and you could sense that, man. I mean, Billy Napier looks right in your eyes when he's talking to you, and he's just genuine. Again, most of these coaches, I think we got to be careful. Don't hate them because they're making a lot of money. You take it too. I would, Jimmy would, all of us would, but they all started out probably working at a young age. They wouldn't be in these positions if they didn't have incredible work ethic and parents and family and people around them. And how'd you like to be, Jimbo Fisher or Kirby Smart driving around the state of Georgia in a brand new F-150 every couple of weeks from the dealerships and, going anywhere, and people, they want, because you're a winner, you're the defending national champions. And you think about a guy that carried himself so well. One of the best stories in recent college football, Stetson Bennett IV. Again, I don't know why Stetson Hat Company, Western Wear, hadn't worked an NIL deal with him. But, he's the stuff that you read bedtime stories to your kids and grandchildren about a guy being told, you're not good enough. You ought to consider, getting a job at the pet shop in the mall, but you're not going to play quarterback here at Georgia. And he didn't let other people write his story. Gandhi's quote, I won't let other people walk through my mind with their dirty feet. Good old country boy. He's very smart. Lauren Smith talked about it last week, going back to Blackshear, Georgia. He's loved by the people in his hometown. He's loved by his teammates, yet there's still Georgia fans going, it's really tough because we got all these 4- and 5-star quarterbacks in the quarterback room. They're going to get upset. Well, I'm sorry. They weren't good enough, Olin and Jimmy. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? It doesn't matter how many stars you got by your name. The best will always win out.
Well, I think the recruiting rankings are fun, and in a lot of instances they're really important. But I do believe that there's probably some Georgia fans, and there would be, if it happens for A&M, there'll be A&M fans. When you win a national championship, your first thought is, what is this going to do for recruiting?
Yeah.
Well, you just did the only, who wants to win the A&M won the recruiting national championship last year?
Yeah.
That don't mean jack.
Yeah.
It only matters if you win the national championship. Yeah. And so if I have a quarterback that helped me win a national championship, I don't know why I would worry about, is he going to stay? I guarantee you when I was working in Austin, nobody was hoping that Vince Young would leave early. So they were afraid that Colt McCoy would transfer. So no, you keep your best guys as long as you can. And I know Stetson Bennett is not the most maybe physically gifted quarterback, but the bottom line is you've been winning at a high level with him. Now you can say, well, that's because he has a great defense to help him out, and that's true. But it's a pet peeve of mine now, and it's in the NFL, it's in college, maybe in high schools, when they say that quarterback has won this many games or quarterback. I've seen great quarterbacks that lost because his defense was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it goes hand in hand. So I would think that, look, Stetson Bennett, quarterback to Georgia Bulldogs to a national championship, you ought to be counting your blessings that he's still around.
Yeah, absolutely. Owen, we've run out of time. Great segment. I know you want to get some rest, but look forward to having you back on next week. We're just getting cranked up now for the start of the real college football season. But tell people, as always, how they can follow you and the great work you produce every day. I've never seen somebody typing. You and Kirk Bowles together reminded me of, like, if you could put Buddy Rich, the great drummer, side by side against the late John Bonham.
No, we're more like Bert and Ernie.
Okay.
But,
okay.
I'm the Bert because I'm the tall one. No, look, I say this every week, and I appreciate you for letting me be on here to say that. Give us a look at TexAgs. We think we're the premier outlet of all things A&M athletics. So if you're interested in the Aggies, or as a fan or even as an enemy, we'd appreciate if you give us a look at TexAgs.com. The abbreviated version of Texas Aggies is TexAgs.com. You can follow us on Twitter there, and if you're so inclined, you can follow me at on Twitter at Olin Buchanan. And you know how you can follow me, Rob? You can spell my name. You can follow me.
Absolutely right. Thanks so much, Olin Buchanan. Great show. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Got a great lineup. Stuart Stat Tiger Carter, Kevin Skarbinski, Philip Marshall, Buddy Martin, Frank Duffy, Jimmy Hodge, and I will be there with them, and going to talk with Philip about Buddy Davidson, the sports information director emeritus at Auburn, who mentored so many people. He's the one who introduced me to David Housel and Reba Gulledge. You can still think about what he did to put Auburn on the map and so many other schools. Sports information directors, they are so important. We all know that. But until then, remember, we most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and be happy you live in the greatest country in the world and give with the expectation of getting nothing in return. We're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.